fight about negative thoughts. And one of the big questions that has come up in my coaching sessions is, why do people ruminate with ADHD? Why do they have these negative thoughts? And how can we rewire our brains so that our default is not always going towards the negative? So this has been studied a lot. It's called negativity bias. And it's true that our brains naturally focus more on the negatives. So I just want to start out by saying that the even though hack and the things that we're going to practice after this presentation are really a practice. It's not something that happens overnight. I think that you guys have understood that through the coaching as well too, is that this is something that comes over time by practicing and rewiring our brain. So ADHD and negative bias, it's important to know, just like I was explaining before, is that ADHD brains have a tendency to ruminate. And by ruminating, I mean ruminating over negative thoughts as well too. I think also this is, feedback coming from my clients, is that because a person with ADHD has had difficulty in life handling things that are seemingly easy for other people, there has been a lot of criticism from elders, let's just say, or from their peers as well too. And I think that people with ADHD actually internalize that and do become more self-critical. Obviously, that's going to have an effect on your feelings of overwhelm and your feelings of distraction and focus and feelings of guilt as well too. So I think that you can see I'm using all these negative words. The negative messages definitely come through negative words, and whether it's somebody else who is actually being critical of us, or whether it's the own voice in our heads, it's the same thing. It's still the negativity, and it still has the same effect on our well-being and our mental well-being as well too. So we're talking about this constant mental chatter, which could also, some people use the word noise as well too in their heads. And very often when people have the hyperactivity more in their heads than in their bodies, or in any case, just as much, it's kind of hard to notice actually what is going well if your first thoughts are the negative thoughts that actually shine through. So this is just reinforcing that negativity and the negativity bias. I think really, just like anything, the first step is building the awareness and noticing that your thoughts are going to the negative. I think that's really the first step towards making any kind of shift and taking any kind of action on it as well too. So I just want to stop for a second. And by the way, I'm going to send you guys this PowerPoint afterwards. So just so you know that you'll have the link to this podcast. This podcast is fantastic. Some of you might know Dr. Amen and his wife. He is a prominent psychiatrist and is very well respected in the ADHD world. There are some things I don't like about him, but there are some things maybe he wouldn't like about me. In any case, his podcast is done with his wife, who was a trauma nurse. And this episode that I've highlighted here today, negativity versus positivity bias. Why are we hardwired to be negative? This is about 25 minutes, so it's a relatively short, I would say, podcast. You can watch it on YouTube also too. And it really juxtaposes this couple. And whereas Dr. Amen is somebody who is very often positive, his wife is somebody having, had this experience of being a trauma nurse, just comes to life very, very wary and very negative. And the way that the two of them kind of balance each other out is interesting, and kind of find a middle ground of what he calls having accurate thoughts instead of just positive thoughts or just negative thoughts. He talks about this middle ground, which is having accurate thoughts with a positive slant. So I really like it. I hope you guys will get a chance to listen to it. Why does self-talk matter? I think we all agree that it matters how we talk to ourselves, but sometimes either we don't pay attention to the words that we use or to the words that we're absorbing from other people as well too. But it's important that we narrate our own lives. And if you can have good self-talk and be more positive, then you will definitely attract more positivity And I think that that's really, really important. I don't know if you guys have heard about the law of attraction, but if you haven't, definitely look it up. It's a fascinating concept. So negative self-talk very often fuels shame. It will also encourage people to procrastinate as well too. I'll just give you an example. Like if somebody knows that if somebody suggests to somebody else with ADHD, well, why don't you put your phone down and make that phone call that you wanted to make? Sorry, put your cell phone down, stop scrolling and make that phone call that you need to make. The person might say actually to themselves or out loud, no, well, there's no point in that. Or, oh, that person's not going to be there if I call them, or they're not going to tell me what I want to hear. So again, you're feeding into the procrastination, which is a very, very big challenge for people with ADHD. And I think it's important to before we talk about the positive self-talk, to say that negative self-talk actually has been proven to raise our cortisol levels, which is the stress hormone. And I think we all recognize that having too much stress, both in our bodies, for our mental health and for our physical health, is something that is very negative as well too. So now we're moving into the being compassionate with ourselves and the positive self-talk, which boosts motivation, and it also encourages resilience in people. And there's something actually that I learned from my son's golf coach, and it was about this self-talk as well too, is to be, again, it's the idea of being accurate and being realistic. So our words matter, and we want to be our best friend. We don't want to be our worst enemy. And I think that that's really, really important. And speaking of this golf coach, he always said to my son, he said, don't say anything to yourself that you would not want somebody else to say to you. So you wouldn't want somebody else to call you a dummy. You wouldn't want somebody else to call you lazy. You wouldn't want somebody else to call you incompetent. So why would you say that about yourself? It's basically where this message is coming from. So here's the formula for the even though hack. And again, some of you might know this because you've worked with me. And for some of you, this is a new formula or a new idea. So the idea is to start a sentence with even though. Then the next part of the sentence is actually the negative thought. So this allows space for the negative thought, and it's acknowledging the negativity and whatever you're feeling. And then you're going to end by countering it with something positive. So this is how the brain shift can happen. This is how we can rewire our brains to something that's more positive and that's more beneficial to us. So I use this example, even though I forgot the appointment. So you're starting with even though I forgot the appointment is something negative that happened to you. It could be a thought, a feeling, an action. And then you end with, I'm learning better ways to track my time. So this is very, very intentional. And again, I'm using this word practice to practice good self-talk. And I think that I know that over time, again, I know that this is something that will be beneficial for all of you, and I'm including myself in this too. This is not just for people with ADHD. So again, this idea of, you have this inner critic inside of you, but you also have an inner coach. So who do you want to be the leader? Who do you want to be driving the car? Who do you want to be your best friend? Do you want it to be somebody who's critical, or do you want it to be somebody who is coaching you and being, like the French say, bienveillant and thoughtful? So going from the negative self-talk or just the negativity to the positivity, it demands a reframe. So this is what the even though hack allows you to do. It allows you to reframe the situation. So this reframing is a question of shifting the emotions, and it's a question of shifting the outlook. And there are lots of studies that have confirmed that this positive reframing actually reduces stress and reduces distress. Just, again, there's a deeper dive at the bottom, which is an article that is on the CHAD website. The CHAD is an important organization if you guys want to look into it afterwards for people with ADD. So it was created a long time ago when people were using ADD and not ADHD in any case. So again, back to this idea that the research is showing that when we are kind to ourselves and show self-compassion and have good self-talk, it actually does reduce the anxiety, it increases motivation, and it also helps with emotion regulation and helps us to bounce back after we have setbacks. So as you've noticed, with the formula, the even though formula. It's even though, then it's the negative thought, and then it's the positive thought. And so studies have shown as well too that when you end something on a positive note, this is the positive that comes out of it. It counters the negativity bias. Okay, so you're ending with the positive thought, and it's creating like an anchor at the end. It's helping you to rewire your thoughts, to rewire your brain towards something positive. And again, like we were speaking about earlier, reduces the rumination. So rumination is associated with something negative. So it's about allowing more space in your life, in your brain, in your thoughts, in your feelings, in your heart for the positive things and not the rumination and the negative. So I wanted to include this, even though this is a negative thought, pitfalls is a negative word, but I wanted to include this because very often when I ask my clients, when I teach them this hack, and I ask them to do it for the first time, they say that it feels inauthentic or it feels fake or it feels uncomfortable. And I think that part of the reason is because maybe it seems a little bit too positive or too goody-goody, too, you know, angelic on that end of the spectrum. But I think also it's that people, especially with ADHD, are so used to that negativity around them, hearing it, feeling it, living it, and giving those messages to themselves that it just doesn't feel right. It feels uncomfortable. You know, maybe in addition to feeling fake, it feels uncomfortable at first. But like anything, you get used to it when you practice it. Also, if there's something that is very, very negative, here it's called a big negative, that might need extra support. So it might not, you might need to explore it deeper. It's not just like, oh, one sentence is magical and it's going to make it go away all of a sudden. I don't want to give you that idea. Again, this is a practice and something that, you know, comes over time. This toxic positivity, this is something I think that's mentioned in the podcast that I mentioned earlier by Dr. Amen. Don't dismiss real pain, acknowledge it, make sure that there's space for it. And again, you don't want to be completely all positive and ignore that there can be dangers and there can be things that are unsafe or that it can be unpleasant, but you don't want to be on the other end of the spectrum either, where your default is going to something negative and everything is negative and you're attracting negative things as well too. So this is to kind of find the middle ground as well too. So tips to make this practice stick, the even though. So as much as I, you know, use it in my individual coaching sessions, this is something that, you know, sometimes people put up on a post-it note on their mirror as they're brushing their teeth. You know, it's something that you want to practice as often as possible. And also, I know that a lot of you journal as well too. So the even though hack is very good to journal and write it down as well too. This is another way of processing information besides just saying it out loud or saying it in the group, which we're going to do afterwards in the breakout rooms. So it's writing things down as a way of anchoring as well too, as way anchoring the thought and making it more real. And the first tip there is keep it realistic. Again, you know, find that middle ground. Find what's authentic for you. So try it together. What we're going to do is we're going to go into breakout rooms and you're going to try the hack. So again, it's starting with the even though, then it's saying the negative thought, and then finishing with the positive thought. I wrote down here, encourage each other also too, which, you know, might feel maybe a little bit uncomfortable as well too, but I think it's a really important element in this group that I have created, and I hope that you guys will encourage each other in the same way that I try to encourage you through my coaching as well too.